The fire is almost out. You feel the cold seeping up through the ground, into your back, into your bones. Somewhere past the last orange embers, the dark is moving. Something just stepped on a dry branch, and you are holding your breath. For most of human history, this was the hardest part of being alive. Not the hunt, not the hunger, the night. You live in a world that has erased darkness. Flip a switch and the dark obeys. But for roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors had no switch. When the sun dropped, half of every single day became a problem they had to survive. And the way they solved it shaped almost everything you are. Think about what the night actually was to them. You had weak eyes. You could not see in the dark, but the things that wanted to eat, you could. Leopards hunt at night. Lions do too. Hyenas, which most people picture as scavengers, are some of the most efficient nighttime pack predators on Earth, and they were hunting your kind for a very long time. For a slow, soft, clawless ape, sunset was not the end of the workday. It was the beginning of the danger. So how did you survive it? The first answer is the one you'd expect. Fire. At a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found burnt bone and ash deep inside the cave, and the evidence suggests that early humans were controlling fire there around 1 million years ago. Fire did 3 things at once. It pushed back predators, because almost no animal will walk into flame. It pushed back the cold, which was its own quiet killer. And it pushed back the dark itself, turning a few square meters of terrifying night into a small room of light. But fire alone doesn't explain it. A fire goes out. A fire needs tending. Someone has to stay awake. And this is where the story stops being what you'd guess and starts being strange. You probably imagine ancient humans sleeping in a big pile from dusk to dawn, exhausted, dead to the world. That picture is almost completely wrong. And we know that because, remarkably, we can still watch it happen. There are people alive today who live close to the way humans lived for most of our history. The Hadza in Tanzania still hunt and gather. So do the San in the Kalahari and the Tsimané in the Bolivian Amazon. A sleep scientist named Jerome Siegel and his team strapped sensors to people in all 3 groups and recorded how they actually slept, with no clocks, no electricity, no screens. What they found in 2015 rewrote a lot of assumptions. These people did not sleep more than you. They slept less. On average, between about 6 and 7 hours a night, sometimes less than many people in cities. And here's the part that matters. They did not fall asleep when the sun went down. They stayed up for hours after dark, talking by the fire. What actually triggered sleep wasn't darkness at all. It was the drop in temperature, the coldest stretch of the night pulling their bodies down into rest, and the rising warmth before dawn pulling them back up. So the night was not for collapsing. The early night was for staying awake together. Which raises the real question. If a tribe is asleep in the open, vulnerable, surrounded by predators, who is watching? A researcher named David Sampson studied this directly with the Hadza, and what he found has a name now: the Sentinel hypothesis. Sampson and his team tracked when each person in a sleeping group was actually awake across the night. Over more than 200 hours of observation, they found that the entire group was asleep at the same time for only about 18 minutes total. 18 minutes. The rest of the night, someone was always awake. Not on purpose. Nobody was assigned the night shift. It happened naturally because people fell asleep and woke at slightly different times. The older you were, the earlier you tended to sleep and wake. The younger you were, the later you stayed up and the later you rose. Across a group spanning grandparents to teenagers, those staggered rhythms meant that at almost every moment some pair of eyes was open, some ears were listening. Someone could smell smoke or hear a branch break. The tribe became a single organism that never fully slept. And the trait you might curse in yourself, the grandparent who wakes at 4, the teenager who can't sleep before midnight, may be the leftover machinery of a watch system that kept your species alive. Decode what that means for a second. Variation in sleep was not a flaw. It was the defense. A group where everyone slept identically would have all gone unconscious together, and the night would have eaten them. Now, picture the scene that all of this built. The temperature drops. The work of the day is done. There is nothing to gather in the dark, nothing to hunt, nowhere safe to go. So the tribe sits around the fire, and they have hours of warm, lit, protected time with nothing to do but be together. And what do humans do with hours like that? This is the most beautiful discovery in the whole story, and it comes from an anthropologist named Polly Weissner, who spent decades with the Zhu Huanxi San people. Weissner did something simple. She recorded what people talked about during the day and what they talked about at night by the fire. The difference was staggering. In daylight, more than two-thirds of conversation was practical and often tense. Complaints, arguments, planning, who did what, who owed what, the gossip and economics of survival. But at night, by firelight, all of that nearly vanished. Around 80% of the long evening conversations were something else entirely. They were stories. They were the names of distant relatives and the deeds of the dead. They were the spirit world, the songs, the myths, the journeys of people who lived far away or long ago. The night was when imagination switched on. Think about what that means. Daylight was for the body. Firelight was for the mind. The flame that protected your ancestors from leopards also gave them the first theater, the first classroom, the first church. The night did not just keep humans alive. The night is where humans became human. The stories that taught a child what to fear, how to behave, who their people were, where they came from. Those were told in the dark, in the glow, in the hours your modern schedule has quietly deleted. And here is the twist that should make you uncomfortable. You have inherited none of the danger of the ancient night and almost none of its gift. Consider one strange detail. A historian named Roger Ekirch spent years digging through old diaries, court records, and letters from before electric light, and he found a pattern that had been completely forgotten. For centuries, people did not sleep in one block. They slept in two. They went to bed, slept for a few hours, then woke in the deep middle of the night, fully awake for an hour or more. They called it first sleep and second sleep. In that gap, they prayed, they talked, they made love, they thought. Then they went back down for the second sleep until dawn. For most of history, waking in the middle of the night was not a problem. It was the night. It was expected. It was when your mind had its quietest hour. Now read that again. And think about how you feel at 3 in the morning when your eyes snap open and you can't get back to sleep. The panic. The certainty that something is wrong with you. The reaching for your phone. What if the thing you've been told is insomnia, the broken sleep you've been taught to medicate away, is partly just an ancient rhythm waking up in a body that no longer has a fire to wake up to? Your ancestors lay in the dark and someone was always awake to keep them safe. You lie in the dark, and a glowing rectangle keeps you awake instead. They slept less than you think, woke more than you think, and were not afraid of either. Their nights were full of fire and faces and stories. Your nights are full of blue light and silence and the quiet fear that you are sleeping wrong. You are not sleeping wrong. You are sleeping alone, in the dark, in a way no human did for 300,000 years. The fire is almost out. The cold is creeping back into the ground. Somewhere past the last embers, the dark is moving. But for the first time in the history of your species, there is no one keeping watch, and nothing in the dark that wants to eat you. You finally survived the night. The only thing you lost was everything it used to give you.
If the world you came from feels a little closer now, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, and every week we'll uncover another piece of who you used to be.